Greetings, people. We are going to talk about why Android is worse than good old Windows. And we're doing this in a whiteboard setting, so you can look at it or you can listen to what I'm saying. But this will aid you, this little thing over here. This will be an aid for you. So why is Android worse than Windows? Well, if you think about Windows as this box here. This is the box we have Windows, and here we have Android. This is a closed source box for the most part. With the internal, Android is kind of like an open box. We have the part of the Linux kernel, we're part of a lot of open source technologies in this box over here. The thing about Windows, even though the internals of it here is closed, really locked down more than Fort Knox and whatnot, everything else, you know, all of the rest of the plug-in system, the ecosystem, what you will call it, with all these boxes here, they can be whatever it is, you know, open source, closed source. They can come from 10,000 different directions. Nobody really gives a fuck. You know, you can go onto the internet and get what you want. You can use the Microsoft Store, which they really want you to use. There's basically no limitation for how and what kind of software that you want to run. When I say limitation, there's always limitation, but Windows in of itself is massively backward compatibility, all the way down to like 1995. You can run software that was built from Windows 1995, probably even, you know, in the 80s of Windows, 3.10. 3.11 and so on. You can probably run some of that old 16-bit software, but you can basically just, you know, you can go onto the big internet here and get most of the stuff that you want. Like with Linux, think about Linux. Instead of just downloading source code, you know, you have to compile or you have to go into the specific repos. You just go onto the internet, you go onto a website and you say, oh, this software here has a software I like, or this software company, and I can just download an exe file and run it, or a deb file for Linux, or RPM file for Linux. Windows function kind of in the same way, but they also have their store, you know, that you can use and you can upload to. And so it's even though it's closed in its components in the OS itself, it's still massively open, meaning that you can add to it, take away from it. You can get stuff from the outside in, you can get stuff from the inside out. You just can't go and mess with the core of the system in here. You know, you can't just go in and mess with the kernel and what have you not. What is the problem with an open source system a la Android over here? The big A, this is the big Windows, is that even though this in here is open and a lot of people can look at the source code and they can mess with it, there are two ways to get software onto your Android system. There is the Google way, the good old Google Store, Play Store, and then you can sideload. So that's the box here. This is sideloading. It's a little bit like what we're doing over here with all of these boxes here. But you can go and get it from around the world, but it's a hassle. You can't just download and sideload a program into your Android system. You have to do some fiddling, some nerding, and stuff like that. Some Android ROMs makes it, you know, modified Android version makes it easy and more convenient. But for the most part, this thing over here, the sideloading, is really time consuming and irritating. You know, time consuming and really irritating to do. It's not just like going downloading an executable and run it for the most part. You have to do some fiddling around. 99% of people that are going to use Android, what they are going to do, they're just going to the Google Store. That's their preferred way of doing it. They don't give a fuck about this over here. It's just like, yeah, we know we can do it, but unless it just becomes like a point and click or download and click like it does here on Windows, we don't give a fuck. And this thing here is massively controlled by Google. They own the keys to this here. They are the ones that say yes and no. They are the ones that determine what can and can be done. They are the one that determine if they should have a piece of the pie and how big that piece of the pie should be. They are the alpha dog. Google owns this here. This is Google's. This can be open and free. Oh, that it is already open. I just have to learn to spell dyslexia at this late hour. It's already open. You know, it's free. free software and all of those things. But Google still controls access to the software. And yes, you can get alternative stores and stuff like that, but what are people going to do no matter how many stores that you have here? They still go to Google here. Why? Because it has all of the software they want. Here they may have 100 packages. Here they may only have 10. And up here they have tens of thousands of packages. So that's what people are going to do. They're going to use this one here because it probably also talks better with Android and so on and so on. So of course they're going to use that one. All of these alternative stores here, they're just going away unless you're buying a Huawei and what have you not. There's a reason why Samsung have both the Samsung store, and the Google store, the G store. Because not everything is on the Samsung store. Oh, I just highlighted that over there. But everything is on the Google store. So they may have exclusive on the Samsung store and Samsung only apps on the Samsung store. But most people don't even use the Samsung store. A lot of it is duplicated. They just go over here. It's just way more convenient for them. And when Google, the big G, the OG, the original gangster here, when they have control of that, oh, that's the wrong button. When they have control of that, we are kind of fucked. Because yes, the platform can be free. That's cool. We can modify it. We can do whatever we want. But when we want software, when we want actually to do stuff with it other than just tinkering with the kernel and stuff like that, we need this here. And most people don't want to go to the alternative store. Windows is a little bit the opposite way around. If you think about it, Windows is kind of like turning this around. Where they are like, the core system, if we do something here, the core system is closed. But you have access to so many things that can be whatever you think and you can dream of it wanted to be. So we don't control all of this ether over here. We don't control this. We don't control this. We don't control this, even though they want with the Microsoft Store, but they're never going to get it. But they don't control all of these big things that are plugging into their core. That is Windows. So what we have here are two different ways of having our ecosystem. One is where the ecosystem is based on a closed base, but the ecosystem is open for everyone. And then we have an ecosystem where the base is open, but the ecosystem in of itself is closed. Where over here, on the Linux side, here on the Android, or not Linux, but the Android side, the core system here is open. You can meddle with it, you can customize it, you can do whatever almost you want with it, but the ecosystem is closed. The store is closed. To some degree, the hardware that you run it on, that you run Android on is closed. This up here is the biggest no for the end user. Where this here is the biggest yes. And you might be like, well, open source and freedom and my American flag is going nuts here, like we are going, hey, freedom fries and what have you not. Yeah, that's all cool and whatnot. But people don't give a fuck about this. People don't really give a fuck about free software and open source. They don't. This here is just buzzword for them. Unless they are developers, they don't give a fuck about it. And even most developers, they don't give a fuck about it. They just choose the software license that their business tells them or their employer tells them to use. Because what matters for everyone else is the store. The access to software. Access to software. This is what matters most to people. How do I get programs to run on my systems? And that is where Microsoft has done a really good job at making sure that it's massively convenient for Microsoft Windows to run software than Android is. And why is that? It's because Google can control it. Google have a way tighter grip of all of this here because of this here, because of the store. They kind of control Android and the Android ecosystem because of this store here. So the Google store, call it GS, makes sure that they have almost ultimate control, over Android. Because they know that little Billy Bob are not going to sideload. Little Amy is not going to sideload. They're just going to use, let's give her some legs here. They're just going to use the Google Store. And they know that. Because Android users has been conditioned to just use the Google Store. It's second nature now. They use the Google Store. That's how it is. So everyone that use Android, or not everyone, but most people that use Android, they're just like, well, if it's not in the Google Store, we don't give a fuck. We are not going to use it. In that way, Google can basically say, well, they have done it. They did it with Huawei. The good old hates from Chinatown. You know, they said, no, you cannot be part of the Google Store up here anymore. Go away. We don't like you anymore. You're those pesky Chinese people. We don't like you. Go away. You make too hot food for us. And they made their own store, the Huawei. I can't remember what is it called. I think that's operating system is called Harmony. Their Android-based system for their Huawei phones. And then they have their own store. But it still is not on par with the good old Google Store. And people still don't buy Huawei phones because they don't have access to Google Store. That's one of the main reasons why they don't want to buy them. Is that, well, it don't have access to the Google Store, so they think it's not a good product. It's not a trusted product. But there's, like, as far as I understand it, some say there's spyware on Huawei phones. I don't want to go into that. Why do you think, again, like I said, why do you think Samsung, the biggest, you know, good old Sam, the biggest mobile manufacturer and seller that has outsold iPhones for years now, are still having the good old Google Store? Even though they have their Samsung store. It's because they know people are going to go to the Google Store. And most Samsung users, if you make a Samsung user here, they still go primarily to the Google Store over the Samsung store. And that is why Android is worse than Windows, because they don't have ultimate control over that one. But they do have ultimate control over this one here. Microsoft has ultimate control over the core, but not all of the things, all of the ecosystem. Android don't control the system, they control the ecosystem. Windows controls the system, but not the ecosystem. See you all later. Bye bye.